Welcome to the April edition of the Tempo Storm Shadowverse Meta Snapshot. With the release of the new expansion, we find ourselves at the edge of paradise, a place where the old meets the new, and everyone gets along with each other. Former top-tier decks such as Sekka Forest and Evo Shadow are still active among the pantheon of new decks in the Edge of Paradise expansion. The rotation of the Eternal Awakening expansion has weakened their power level by a notch, bringing them more in line with their peers. But the power vacuum left by Sekka Forest and Evo Shadow has partially been filled by aggro, notably by Discard Blood and Aggro Sword, with the latter utilizing half a deck of one-cost cards. But these aggressive decks are, in turn, kept in check through the introduction of Angel's Blessing, one of the best cards in the set, which has given Control combo a good source of draw and healing. Before we explore the meta in detail, remember to like and subscribe to our Tempo Strategy YouTube channel for the latest decks and strategy content. Be sure to check out the Shadowverse section at tempostorm.com for the full meta snapshot, as well as other Shadowverse content. The rotation of Shao has made Evo Shadow slightly weaker, but the deck is still one of the most popular decks on ladder. The 1PP Call of the Great Arm is a great way to get Susie Hexcaster into the grave as soon as possible, and add powerful cards like Skeleton Raider or Sarah Nunos back to the hand. Evo Shadow has always been consistent, taking advantage of access to reliable win conditions in Skeleton Raider and Link Staff Necromancer, giving the deck decent matchups across the board and the ability to thrive in the diverse Edge of Paradise meta. Sekka Forest returns as the number 2 deck in this month's meta snapshot. Without the Latika game plan or the aggression from Alberta and Walder, the deck is certainly less potent than before. Fortunately, with positive matchups against Spell Boost Rune, Rally Sword, Discard Blood, and others, Sekka Forest finds itself favorable against the host of new decks in the meta, keeping the deck relevant. Buff Dragon was relevant at the beginning of the last full expansion before quickly being replaced by Burn Dragon after the mini expansion. With the introduction of Loyal Sea Serpent, Tropical Mermaid, and Angel's Blessing, which has given the deck a high degree of consistency in making gigantic boards over and over, Buff Dragon has found itself in the 3rd spot in this month's Shadowverse Meta Snapshot. And with its Kryptonite Heal Haven languishing in Tier 3, Buff Dragon enjoys a mostly unchallenged meta environment. No Paradise is complete without the good old classic Spell Boost Rune. Being the more prominent of the newer runecraft decks, others being Yukushima and Dirt Rune, Spell Boost Rune allows Isabelle and her powerful Elements of Creation spell yet another chance to shine. But the slow start of the deck and limited healing makes the deck weak to up-and-coming aggro decks. In the last slot of this month's Tier 1 list is Rally Sword, which is further split into 2 subcategories: a Kagemitsu-based Evo Rally Sword and an aggressive aggro Rally Sword, utilizing cards such as Quick Blader and Golden Warrior. The aggro variant can be used while combo decks such as Spell Boost Rune are popular on ladder, while the Evo variant is great against decks such as Sekka because of monochrome endgame. For fast ladder climbing, both Sekka Forest and Rally Sword are great choices given their speeds. The 2 variants of Rally Sword allow the deck to adapt to the meta while also giving the player the element of surprise while on ladder, and the same can be said about the 3 variants of runecraft decks. Discard Blood also has extremely quick games, but it is arguably weaker while being much easier to pilot. For players looking for a challenge, Spell Boost Rune is back on the menu, and similar to previous iterations of the deck, it still has quite a bit of creative deck building potential. It has been some time since the Shadowverse meta has experienced this amount of diversity. Not only does every class have their own representation in the meta, some classes, namely Runecraft and arguably Swordcraft, have multiple successful archetype representatives. While Evo Shadow and Sekka Forest, champions of the previous expansion, are still common on ladder, this remnant can be attributed to the general familiarity surrounding those decks. After all, they are tried and true lists that still function well in the current meta environment. This diversity results in a chaotic environment that makes it somewhat difficult to get a good read on what's to come. The Runecraft decks and Rally Swords still have room for optimization. Given the current trajectory, we expect Sekka Forest to become more popular once again alongside with Buff Dragon, while Evo Shadow may fall a bit. In the previous expansion, the mini expansion was shifted up to the beginning of the 2nd month, perhaps as an attempt to revitalize the Sekka and Evo Shadow meta that felt stagnant. Given the diverse and chaotic nature of Edge of Paradise, the Meta Snapshot team believes the early booster is not needed this time around, as the vibrant meta is enough to keep the state of the game fresh, that is, until someone figures out some magical build to once again dominate the meta. For now, keep an eye on the upcoming detailed deck guides in the Shadowverse section of our website from our professional roster. See you all in next month's edition of the Shadowverse Meta Snapshot.